The story unfolds where he can see a frosty city where a newscaster urgently reporting the world's dire predicament. Earth has plunged into a relentless ice age. Global temperatures plummet at an alarming rate, showing no signs of recovery. Despite the bone-chilling frost, the newscaster implores viewers not to lose hope. Whether driven by duty or genuine optimism, he insists that the government remains committed to its people, rallying everyone to overcome this crisis. But fate intervenes cruelly. Mid-sentence, a massive airplane crashes, silencing the news crew forever. The scene shifts to a dim, frozen apartment room strewn with empty supply bags. Electricity is a distant memory. Here resides our hero, Han Feng, when a desperate knock echoes through the frosty air. Han Feng, gripping a bloodied baseball bat, cautiously approaches the door. Through the peephole, he glimpses a shivering, beautiful woman on the brink of freezing. Without hesitation, he opens the door, and despite the biting cold, blushes as he greets his crush, Hyona. Concerned for her safety, he invites her inside, unaware of the unexpected twist awaiting them. Hyona, however, has other plans. She throws herself at Han Feng, lips meeting in a passionate kiss. Time slips away as they share warmth and desire. When reality finally intrudes, Han Feng questions his own impulsiveness. But Hyona, teary-eyed and sincere, confesses her love for him. The apocalypse has revealed true feelings, and she insists they belong together. In a seductive whisper, she promises anything to prove her sincerity, igniting Han Feng's desires. Yet, just as passion flares, shadows reveal a sinister figure. Han Feng's eyes close, expecting love's embrace, but instead, a brutal blow sends him reeling. Bleeding and barely conscious, he lies on the floor. Hyona's true nature emerges. The girl he thought he knew is anything but pure-hearted. Betrayal, it seems, thrives even in the coldest of times. From the outset, their sinister plan unfolds, looting Han Feng's room, seizing every precious supply to survive the relentless cold apocalypse. Our poor hero, shivering in the dim hallway, eavesdrops on the treacherous conversation between Hyona and her accomplice. Life slips away, his body mirroring the room's icy chill. Yet, despite betraying the pure-hearted Han Feng, the audacious woman flirts shamelessly with another man right before his fading eyes. As Han Feng breathes his last, he contemplates rebirth. No more lovesick vulnerability. He vows to break free from exploitation. His departing soul glimpses a distant light, a beacon at the tunnel's end. Desperate, he reaches out, but the light morphs into crimson intensity, engulfing him. Suddenly, he awakens, drenched in sweat, as if escaping a harrowing nightmare. Perplexed, he sits on the bed, questioning reality itself. He stared at the window, wondering where the hell he was. 30 minutes later, we find him standing on the bed, dumbfounded. He continued to stare out the window, pondering his location. 30 minutes later, we see him on the balcony, basking in the warmth of the sun. He never thought he would experience such a sensation again after the ice apocalypse he endured. Confused, he checked the date and discovered it was June 28th. If his memory served him right, the apocalypse began on July 15th. He should have been dead by now, but the reality he was feeling was too vivid to be a dream. There was only one explanation for this scenario. Han Feng had been reborn. However, something was different this time. Since waking up, a red glow had surrounded his right hand. Although it appeared as though his hand was on fire, it didn't hurt or burn him. The only effect it had was a warm sensation. Dust entered his nose, causing him to sneeze. Suddenly, the red glowing light on his hand turned green, leaving him perplexed. His surprise grew as the green flame grew larger, leaving him wondering what was happening. Despite this, Han Feng felt no pain. Exhausted from overthinking, he returned to his room. He commented on how surreal the phenomenon on his hand was, stating that science couldn't explain the beams of light emanating from it. The glow expanded violently before gradually calming down and shrinking. Han Feng noted that the green light was different from the red one, as the red light was more stable. Suddenly, he felt completely drained and sat on the sofa, trying to catch his breath. He speculated that the sudden exhaustion was caused by the green flame. Convinced of this, he flailed his hand around in an attempt to extinguish the fire, but it remained unaffected. Then, an idea crossed his mind. Perhaps this was a power-up, similar to the ones he read about in manhwas. The typical storyline involves the protagonist being reborn after a gruesome death and acquiring an overwhelmingly powerful ability. Bearing this in mind, he grasps a knife and thrusts it forward. Unfortunately, the green flame remains unresponsive. It remains confined to his hand and fails to extend towards the knife. Realizing the absurdity of his actions, Han Feng scratches the back of his head while making a foolish expression. As a result of all the movement, his stomach begins to rumble. The guy just woke up and he's already engaging in bizarre behavior without even having breakfast. Our protagonist heads to the fridge, only to discover its emptiness. Man, this scene is too relatable. This is not good for him. He's starving. If he doesn't eat something soon, he'll faint. Perhaps the flame on his hand has something to do with his rapidly increasing hunger. By some stroke of luck, he notices a jar of leftover soybeans on the table. Well, it's not the most satisfying meal, considering it's just a snack. However, Han Feng is desperate. He would devour anything available to alleviate his hunger. Using his right hand, he picks up a bean and tosses it into his mouth. Just as he's about to chew, the bean explodes in his mouth. As the smoke clears, we witness a fully grown soybean crop sprouting from Han Feng's mouth. The man himself is too stunned to comprehend what's happening. As he removes the crop from his mouth, he realizes it has transformed into a fully grown soybean plant. In addition to this peculiar occurrence, the exhaustion he experienced earlier has vanished, along with the flame on his hand. Our main character takes a pod from the plant and opens it, revealing some thriving bean sprouts inside. Our hero is now certain that he has indeed traveled back in time and gained the power to aid his survival. He is now enthusiastic about exploring his newfound abilities. However, the most crucial task at hand is to prioritize stocking up on supplies for the impending Ice Age. The scene transitions to the bustling cityscape, with the street filled to the brim with people and heavy foot traffic. Our hero, lost in his thoughts, navigates through the crowd. As he walks, he contemplates the extent of his newfound power. He knows that the flame on his hand has two colors, red and green. While he hasn't witnessed the capabilities of the red flame yet, the green flame intensifies his heartbeat and induces fatigue as it expands or shrinks. He has also noticed its impact on soybeans. With the limited information he possesses, he fixates on his hand, unable to draw any conclusions. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him from behind. Recognizing the sweet and alluring tone, our protagonist turns around, although his expression reveals annoyance. The reason is simple. The person who called him is none other than the treacherous individual responsible for his demise during the ice apocalypse. Just like in Han Feng's previous life, this person assumes a clingy and innocent demeanor, proclaiming that the encounter must be fate. Our hero flinches upon seeing Li Huna once again, stirring up a mixture of emotions within him. For 3 long years this simp king regarded Li Huna as the goddess of his dreams, going to great lengths to bring her happiness. Despite being aware that he was simply a convenient fallback option in her eyes, Han Feng never minded. However, he never anticipated that this person he was infatuated with would be the cause of his death. Recalling the past incident, a surge of rage courses through our hero's veins, yet he chooses to maintain his composure for now. This is not the opportune moment for revenge. Securing supplies takes precedence. On the other hand, Huna desperately strives to capture his attention, leaning closer and inquiring why he appears lost in thought. Despite his anger towards her, Han Feng behaves cordially. Pretending to still possess the simp-like demeanor he had before, our protagonist acts naturally, complimenting Huna on her attractive face. Huna chuckles, playfully noting that Han Feng has become quite smooth with his advances, although she's only saying this to deceive him. With a seductive pose that highlights her beauty, she entices our hero to go shopping. Her plan is likely to extract freebies from him and use him as a walking credit card. Unfortunately for her, Han Feng has become wise after watching too many motivational YouTube shorts, especially after dying once because of her. Our boy walks past her, stating that he can't accompany her today, The audacity of his rejection leaves her utterly stunned. Her eyes widen as she is rejected by the man she considers inferior. Han Feng continues walking without looking back. In his mind, he acknowledges her effort, but knows he is no longer the foolish man he once was. The scene shifts, and we find ourselves in a bustling supermarket called Waldemar, distinct from Walmart. It is the largest and most well-stocked supermarket in the East region. However, when the Ice Age struck, this place was swiftly depleted overnight, with nobody discovering who was responsible. Our hero navigates through the supermarket, promptly filling his cart with essential supplies. His sole focus is to stock up as much as possible before the impending apocalypse. Additionally, he searches the internet for survival tips during the apocalypse. According to his findings, the most crucial items he needs are food, winter clothing, medicine, daily necessities, and fuel. However, like any other person, Han Feng encounters a significant obstacle: money. Currently, he only has 15,357 yuan in his personal wallet, which certainly won't suffice to purchase everything he needs. Han Feng reaches a dead end, unsure of how to acquire the necessary funds. Suddenly, a message notification appears, informing him that he is now eligible for a loan of up to 168,800 yuan. This gave our hero a brilliant idea, and without any hesitation, he proceeded to download all the loan applications on his phone. There are numerous ways to acquire a loan, and he has no intention of repaying them since the apocalypse is imminent. Meanwhile, we witness Hyuna seething with anger over her recent encounter with our hero. She's furious that despite Han Feng being just one of her pathetic admirers, he had the audacity to reject her. In her opinion, Han Feng is nothing but a pitiful loser who doesn't even own a car. Consequently, she resolves to never interact with him again. However, at that very moment, a luxurious car pulls up beside her, and when the driver rolls down the window, it reveals our boy, beaming with joy at his purchase. Fiona is taken aback to see Han Feng behind the wheel. Her eyes nearly pop out of their sockets as she gazes at the man she was just berating moments ago. The gold digger promptly inquires if Han Feng owns the car, to which he confirms, stating that he just bought it. He explains that his father's business is thriving in the US, so he received some cash. The realization dawns on the bitch that Han Feng does have his uses, prompting her to revert back to her sweet and cunning demeanor towards him. With teary eyes, she begins apologizing for inviting Han Feng to go shopping earlier, claiming that she was unaware of his prior engagement. However, she admits to feeling a bit hurt by his cold behavior, assuming that he was trying to avoid her. Our hero smirks, calling Hyuna silly for entertaining such thoughts. He then tenderly grasps her chin and pulls her closer, reassuring her that he would never abandon Hyuna as she is of utmost importance to him. Hearing this, the bitch smirks, thinking that she has regained control over the gullible man. She puts on her best acting skills, expressing that Han Feng is also special to her. Consequently, she attempts to invite him for dinner and suggest watching movies together, claiming that she wants to get to know him better. Unfortunately for her, our boy doesn't hear any of her nonsense, as he has distanced himself from her. As she turns around, Hyuna observes Han Feng organizing all the items stacked in his car's trunk, stating that he will be occupied for the entire day with these supplies. Slightly annoyed by being ignored, Hyuna questions our hero about why he purchased so much stuff. Han Feng simply states that there is no particular significance to it. He just felt like doing so. He then informs her that he also bought a gift for her, causing the girl to blush with excitement. With that in mind, the bitch decides to move along, but not before expressing her anticipation for the gift he bought. As she walks away, a sinister smile forms on her face, satisfied that she has succeeded. Initially, she believed she had lost an insignificant admirer, but she is delighted that Han Feng appears as gullible as ever. On the other hand, our boy is also smiling. He doesn't want Hyuna to discover the stockpile of necessities he has, but he also doesn't want to sever his connection with her, as he intends to seek revenge. A sinister thought sprouts in the depths of our hero's mind. Once he completes all his preparations and the apocalypse unfolds, he vows that Hyuna and the man who killed him will experience the consequences of their actions. Contemplating this fills our boy with excitement. He can hardly wait for the arrival of the Ice Age. The Ice Age will commence on July 15th. The day will commence with heavy snowfall, and the temperature will plummet to minus 20 degrees Celsius, minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit for those not using the metric system. Over the following month, the temperature will gradually decrease, reaching lows of minus 70 degrees Celsius. At this point, the world will be enveloped in ice and snow, rendering outdoor activities impossible. Consequently, Han Feng is utilizing his time to prepare for the inevitable disaster. He is currently accumulating an ample supply of food to ensure his survival. All the provisions are meticulously packed and sealed to prevent his neighbors from suspecting that he's hoarding them. As for the sensitive and suspicious items, Han Feng personally moves them under the cover of darkness to avoid detection. After the apocalypse, the power grid will become highly unstable. This is where the fuel he purchased comes into play. It will be used to power the generators. He has amassed enough fuel to last at least a year. With the onset of the apocalypse, the heating system will cease to function, necessitating modifications to his house for independent heating. Additionally, he must reinforce the doors and windows to enhance his security. At this point, our MC is truly astounded by the size of his damn apartment. He has even designated a room specifically for storing additional supplies. By the time he completes his preparations, it is already the 14th of July, just one day before the temperature plummets. With only a day remaining, the main event is about to commence. He steeled himself for the impending disaster and Ice Age apocalypse. While relying solely on his accumulated supplies wouldn't suffice, he placed his trust in his ability to manipulate plants. He prayed it wouldn't fail him in his time of need. Sitting at the table, he gazed at the prepared soybeans he had grown using his unique skill. Despite its usefulness, he couldn't shake his anxiety, as he hadn't yet mastered how to activate it. Now, at the moment of truth, he opened his mouth to taste the fruits of his labor. As he savored a spoonful of beans, he hoped the taste wouldn't disappoint. Fortunately, the food he grew with his skill was indeed edible, proving his ability to produce sustenance. The next challenge was mastering his power. Aware it manifested in two colors, he still lacked control over which would appear. His experiments so far, limited to soybeans and largely accidental, had yielded results. With this in mind, he opened his fridge, eager to test if the green aura could extend to other plants as well. The scene zooms outside, and the bright daylight soon transitions into dusk. Our hero slowly opens his eyes to find himself holding a broccoli in his hand. It turns out he had passed out after attempting to use his new skills. Despite his throbbing headache, he struggles to assess the situation. It's clear that his power exacts a serious toll on his mind and body, making it impossible to use casually. Nonetheless, he feels some satisfaction in having learned something about his mysterious ability. Before blacking out, he experimented with his power on various plants. Some showed no reaction, while others, like soybeans, grew from seeds to full-grown plants in an instant. Yet, there were also hazards. Several plants exploded when exposed to Han Feng's power, transforming into light coal-like substances that could be used as fuel. This discovery relieves his worries about staying warm. Despite his attempts to refine his control by increasing his focus, such as making broccoli bloom like a bouquet, exhaustion eventually overwhelmed him, and he collapsed. The unpredictability of his power frustrates him. He's unable to discern any patterns. Nevertheless, he remains convinced that there must be underlying principles governing his ability. With only a day left before the apocalypse, he continues grappling with his mysterious power. Han Feng is troubled, twirling the broccoli he grew with his green power, lamenting his inability to detect any activation patterns. The success rate and effects of our boy's mysterious skill are far too random. Nevertheless, it's a relief that Han Feng has gained some understanding of the activation conditions. The key to his power lies significantly in his consciousness. Sitting with his legs tucked under, he began meditating, fully experiencing the sensation of his body. Gathering all his focus and peace of mind, our boy immersed himself in an imaginary journey into nature, visualizing himself completely naked. The scene resembled those spiritual journey ads, with different animals in the forest staring at him, puzzled by his intense focus. Both his body and mind merged with the natural world. Feeling he had successfully connected with nature, at least spiritually, our boy slowly opened his eyes, eager to see the result. Fortunately, his theory proved correct. The green flame on his hand began pulsating, indicating it was active but under control. Next, we see various types of meat laid out on the table, hinting that our boy is about to conduct an experiment. He gently placed his hand on the pork, hoping the green flame would react. After some time, there was no response from the meat, leading Han Feng to wonder if his power only worked on plants. Reluctant to be a vegetarian for the apocalypse, he grew impatient and tightly grasped the meat, willing his magic to affect it. His concentration was so intense that his veins bulged, yet he was disappointed when nothing happened. Reflecting on his earlier meditation, he recalled feeling two distinct sensations while attempting to activate his power. It dawned on him that he also possessed the red flame and hadn't tested it yet. Going back to meditation mode, our MC channeled his thoughts into activating the red flame. He closes his eyes and starts his mental preparation once again. Thus, the red flame burns on his hand, and it started to envelop the meat he is holding. The pork started showing bubbles on it, indicating that something is happening. And suddenly, the delicious fresh meat turned into an undistinguishable blob of flesh. It's so disgusting that the artist had to blur it for us, so we won't vomit like our hero did. Horrified by the mien, Han Feng violently tosses it to the ground, calling it disgusting. Then, his curiosity gets the better of him as he starts pressing his finger against the meat resembling chum from the chum bucket that plankton sells, wondering what happened to it. Upon picking it up, he realizes the meat reacted to the red light, though it feels as though the pork got cooked or something. Han Feng becomes a little disappointed, thinking that's all the red flame can do. However, as he stares at his hand, he senses there is much more to discover. Upon closer inspection of the massacred meat, he notices the red flame somehow disintegrated it, resulting in its hideous appearance. Suddenly, an idea strikes him as he wonders what would happen if he combined both of his powers. Thus, he grabs a handful of soybeans from the bowl and activates his other flame. In his right hand, the soybeans are enveloped in a green aura, while in his left hand, the meat is imbued with the red flame. The green light symbolizes growth, contrasting with the red light's disintegrating effect. Han Feng ponders the outcome of merging these opposing powers. He proceeds to smoosh the soybeans and meat together along with the two flames. A bright golden light begins to emanate from his hands. The result of the experiment is so impressive that it causes him to shout in amazement. The previously disgusting meat reverts to its pristine condition and actually grows bigger, expanding nearly 4 times its original size. However, the soybeans in his other hand disappear, leaving him perplexed if they merged with the meat, creating this incredible product. Han Feng carefully observes the newly enhanced meat, sniffing and scrutinizing it. There's no doubt the quality has surpassed the original. It feels and smells exactly like real meat, but somehow even fresher. Delighted by this successful experiment, steam begins to puff out of our hero's nose in excitement at the thought of repeating the process. Unfortunately, all his subsequent experiments end in failure. Han Feng slams the ground in frustration, questioning what went wrong. Despite his series of failures, he quickly gets over his tantrum and resolves not to dwell on it, deciding that he will figure it out next time. Nonetheless, he concludes that today's experiment was still productive. He can now freely activate both the green and red flames simultaneously. Han Feng grins, imagining that mastering this power will place him at the pinnacle of this apocalyptic world. He visualizes himself as a superhuman standing atop Mount Everest, albeit with his underwear worn over his pants. He jokingly wonders which superhero sports such attire, refraining from mentioning any names due to copyright issues. Then it dawns on him that the ability to procure food easily doesn't elevate him to the level of the Man of Steel. He also needs protection. As a normal human being, he is completely defenseless against thieves. Thus, Han Feng sets about cleaning up the mess he made, realizing he needs to quickly find himself a weapon before the temperature plummets. While picking up the items from the floor, he gazes out the window and sees snow falling from the sky. The onset of global freezing has begun, affecting the entire world as we know it. Although Han Feng was aware it would start on July 15th, witnessing it again feels surreal. With a clear plan in mind, he decides to venture outside to procure weapons. Knowing the temperature will drop to 45 degrees below zero within the week, he needs to acquire a gun quickly. However, living outside America means buying guns is illegal for him, and he lacks connections to smuggle one in. As he's walking by, he overhears someone saying that he is someone in construction involved in projects costing millions. An overly dressed blonde guy is seen talking to someone. His fashion sense reminds me of those teenagers in TikTok trying to impress their viewers. He tells the guy with him that he knows Lao Wang from the Zigging Lida group, claiming that he's his big brother. Our MC seems to recognize this clown. Han Feng is well familiar with the exaggerated fashion style that this guy has. Around the area, this clown is pretty popular, and everyone calls him his brother Lai. He is reputed to be in charge of contracting projects, and he seems to know everyone around here. The guy he's talking to offers him a cigarette, but Lai states that he doesn't smoke any brands other than Huazi, for they only make him cough. I'm no smoker, but I'm pretty sure this fool is just exaggerating. According to our hero, this fool doesn't have a proper job, but he always acts so busy. Despite that, his connections are the real deal. Staring at him, Han Feng wonders if he could use this idiot to get what he needs, a gun, since it is illegal to buy it directly. Our MC wonders if one of Lai's connections will be able to get him one. As such, he calls out to Brother Lai, and the guy looks at him curiously. But guy, let me just say this though. This idiot's face is irritating. Han Feng awkwardly waves at the man and gives off a forced smile. Lai asks him if they know each other. In response, our MC says that he's Han Feng, and proceed to ask the man if he doesn't remember him. Not wanting to embarrass himself, Lai pretends that he just remembered him, even though he has absolutely no clue who Han Feng really is. The fool explains that he's been too busy lately, which is why he forgot his name. After this brief introduction, our MC starts to look around suspiciously, as if checking to see if anyone is listening to their conversation, confirming that they are not being monitored. He comes near the curious Lai and whispers his agenda. The blonde man couldn't help but shout from surprise after hearing our MC demand, asking why he needs such a thing. Feeling guilty, Han Feng's gaze wandered to the side, unsure of what convincing explanation he could offer the guy. Before he could speak further, Lai made it clear that he doesn't engage in anything illegal. He admitted knowing people who could help Han Feng with his problem, but cautioned against getting involved in something dangerous. Despite how annoying Lai was, he adhered to his principles. Han Feng tried to calm him down, downplaying the situation. He explained that he simply wanted a weapon for self-defense, citing concerns over someone who harbored a personal grudge against him. Han Feng's story unfolded. One day, while riding his bike to work, he encountered an old man who spat at him like a thug. Unwittingly, Han Feng became a victim as the spit landed on his face. Naturally, he confronted the old man, questioning his behavior. A heated argument escalated into a physical fight, where Han Feng ended up beating the man. As the man left, he vowed revenge, like any third-rate villain would. The next day, the guy and his goons ambushed Han Feng, leaving him battered and threatened to repeat the assault if they saw him again. Han Feng felt deeply humiliated by the incident, explaining his desire for a gun for self-defense. Lai was moved by Han Feng's story, calling the old man a nasty jerk, not for assaulting Han Feng, but for his uncivilized behavior of spitting. Han Feng was slightly annoyed that Lai sympathized more with the issue of spitting than with him being a victim. But regardless, Lai was now on board with Han Feng's situation. He reassured Han Feng by placing a hand on his shoulder, signaling his support. The guy proudly declares that he's got him covered, stating he'll make a call to his connections right now to assist with his problems. Still feeling a little guilty, our MC couldn't even look at the guy as he thanked him, knowing he had just lied his way through. Lai informed him they'd take the bus to their destination since his luxury car was being serviced today and unavailable. Han Feng remarked, assuring them he had his own car. Just then, a luxurious pickup truck nearby beeped. Surprising Lai it belonged to our MC. They sped off towards Lai's connection. Along the way, the guy couldn't help but marvel at him awesome ride, saying that, he asking how much it cost. Han Feng disclosed he bought the car for 700,000 yuan. While giving directions, the social climber began snapping selfies inside the car's luxurious interior, posting them online and complaining it was a bit uncomfortable. The scene shifted to the entertainment district with people sitting outside around a campfire, complaining about the cold. Suddenly, 3 menacing-looking men noticed someone pulling up in a luxurious car. Lai stepped out, acting self-important as ever. The goons stood up to greet him, clearly familiar with the con man. They admired Lai's fancy ride, asking how much he paid for it with exaggerated admiration. Lai didn't deny owning the car, stating he bought it for around 700 grand. Meanwhile, Han Feng, the actual owner, marveled at Lai's confident lying, amused to be standing right beside him. Inside, they were greeted by a burly man with an intimidating presence, the mafia boss. He called out Big Mouth Lai, asking why he was here so late. Nervously, Lai offered the boss a cigar, attempting to break the cold atmosphere. However, the boss had no time for small talk and instructed Lai to get straight to business. Still trembling slightly, Brother Lai informed him that our MC had come to purchase something, specifically a gun. Just looking at the man sent shivers down our MC's spine, realizing how intimidating he truly was. The boss stared at our hero intensely, puffing on his cigar casually. His overwhelming presence affirmed his authority. The man smiled, acknowledging our MC purpose. He confirmed he could easily procure a basic gun. However, he seemed disappointed, expecting Han Feng to bring him something more intriguing than a simple gun deal. The boss summoned one of his lackeys, Kingzi, who promptly produced the item from his pocket, a handgun he placed on the table, priced at 6,000. Just as everyone thought the deal was settled, Han Feng gathered his courage and stated he was actually interested in a larger, longer gun with a scope. He gestured in a circular motion with his hand, indicating what he was looking for. The boss leaned back on his couch, visibly disappointed in our MC, though he said nothing. The man's sudden change of demeanor initially scared our MC. He gulped nervously, trying to calm himself. Then, the mafia boss angrily shouted at him, asking if he was searching for a sniper rifle. Angrily, he informed Han Feng that this place wasn't a shopping mall where he could get whatever he wanted. The handgun was the best they could offer, and Han Feng could take it or leave it. At this point, Brother Lai interjected, quickly explaining our boy's situation to the boss. However, the story differed completely from what our boy had told Lai earlier. This time, his need for a gun related to his wife and an incident 5 years ago. Some time passed, and next, we saw the mafia boss visibly moved by Brother Lai's story. He repeated the same word over and over, yelling that it was disgusting. As it turned out, Lai had told the boss that Han Feng's wife had cheated on him, and none of their 3 children were his. Our MC couldn't help but flinch at how absurd Brother Lai's story seemed, thinking it was too much, even for the boss. But seeing that it seemed to be working, he kept his mouth shut, fully convinced by the tragic background story. The boss stated that arranging the sniper rifle was possible but would take a few days to procure. Hearing this made him happy, so he thanked Liu, the mafia boss, for his generosity and understanding. Liu then ordered Qianzi once again to arrange the deal, instructing him to check if a semi-automatic rifle with loaded ammo was available. Meanwhile, Brother Lai turned towards him, and while giving a thumbs up, he proudly declares that the business is done within minutes. In a surprising turn of events, the mafia boss then hands the handgun to our MC, catching him off guard. Liu reveals it as a gift and urges Han Feng to accept it. Bewildered by the gangster's generous gesture, Han Feng was momentarily lost for words as he stared at the man. After accepting the gift, he informs the mafia boss about the current weather issues. He mentions that a friend working for the government informed him that due to abnormal weather, there will soon be restrictions on purchasing supplies. It's advisable to stock up as soon as possible. The mafia boss stares at him, assessing if Han Feng is truthful. Despite the intimidating gaze, our MC remains steadfast, showing how serious he is. It seems our MC has taken a liking to this man, which is why he hints about the upcoming apocalypse so they can prepare. With that, their business with the mafia is concluded, and Liu tells them to get the hell out of their place. As they walk, Lai keeps talking about how smoothly he handled the deal. He remarks that Liu's mood is so good, he could probably ask for a cannon, and Liu would agree. Delighted, our boy thanks Lai and promises to buy him some cigars later. The blonde guy clarifies that he isn't really asking for anything in return. But if our MC insists, he only takes Huazi cigars, and just 7-8 cartons will do. While the guy kept yapping about cigars, our boy was mentally checking off his lists. He now had food, supplies, and shelter, everything set for the apocalypse. All that remained was mastering his abilities. However, lost in his thoughts, Han Feng failed to notice the ice buildup on the pavement and slipped. Our MC took a bad fall, injuring his leg in the process. Trembling with pain, he clutched his injured leg, suspecting it might be broken. He handed his keys to Brother Lai, asking him to drive to the hospital. However, Brother Lai scratched his head, admitting he didn't have a driver's license and couldn't help. Pitying him, Brother Lai carried him for a bit but found him too heavy, so they hailed a taxi instead. At the hospital reception, employees were packing up to leave. A young nurse glanced out the window, noticing the deteriorating weather. Suddenly, she received an urgent call requesting assistance due to staff shortage, needing the head nurse's help. Meanwhile, Han Feng hung his head like a scolded puppy, regretting his inattention that led to his broken leg. The doctor informed him he needed to stay for observation for an hour. Our MC was in a fix, stuck in the hospital during the early phase of the cold apocalypse, unable to prepare. In the lobby, Brother Lai bid farewell to Han Feng, explaining he had other matters to attend to. However, the kind-hearted con artist assured him he could be called anytime for help. And so, our MC was left alone in the crowded and chilly hospital, overflowing with patients injured by the sudden blizzard and plummeting temperatures. Emergency beds line the hallways, a grim testament to the deteriorating conditions outside. Getting impatient, he looked around, wondering when the results would come out so he could get his medicines. His attention was diverted when an attractive woman passed by. Like any cultured man, he couldn't help but notice her. The head nurse, Jin, swiftly attended to a patient needing immediate medical attention. She checked each patient diligently and almost flawlessly. Her meticulous skills and elegant appearance painted a perfect picture. Han Feng couldn't help but be mesmerized by the beautiful scene before him. He was even more amazed to discover that this young lady had already become a head nurse at such a young age. His eyes remained fixed on the head nurse, and the more he observed her, the more captivated he became by Jin's incredible skill and kindness. Her work ethic was elegant, and her stunning face made her even more majestic. Han Feng continued to admire her, not just her appearance, but also her demeanor, thinking about how others might take advantage of her vulnerability, much like he was doing now. Suddenly, the elderly man sitting beside Han Feng called for the head nurse's attention. Being diligent as ever, Jin promptly assisted the old man, who complained of back pain and requested help. Due to the hospital's understaffing, Jin informed him she would attend to him later. Little did she know, his complaints were a ruse to sneak his smartphone under her skirt and record a video. While she's still clueless about the situation, Jin maintained her sunny disposition and acted kindly to the sleazy ball. She states that they will need to x-ray his back to make sure. Not giving a single damn about her explanation, the old fart became even more aroused. He stands up and began caressing Jin's body in the pretext of showing her where the part of his body hurts. The head nurse is visibly taken aback by this sudden gesture, so she flinches. But as it turns out, she didn't think that she's getting taken advantage of. Her only complaint is that she's ticklish around the area where the sleazeball is touching. Hearing this, the creepy old man grins, thinking that this is his chance to go even further, plus ultra. His hand started slipping down her butt, and he began groping them watermelons. Just when things are getting out of hand, an unidentified flying crutch shoots towards the sleazeball, knocking him down. The old bastard falls down to the floor with his ass first, and starts groaning from the pain. Despite being taken advantage of, Jin still showed concern for the patient. The crutch came from our boy, explaining that this is his first time using it, so he accidentally sent it flying. Han Feng reaches towards the old man's phone in the pretext of checking if it broke from the fall. The sleazeball immediately became defensive, shouting at him not to touch his phone. However, it was too late. Han Feng grabbed the phone and proceeded to check the screen. That's when he saw it. The old man had indeed been recording under the nurse's skirt. Our MC confronted the old man, ordering him to get out of the hospital before he showed anyone the video. He made it clear that he wouldn't return the phone and threatened that if he caught the man doing such a thing again, he would expose him on the internet. Not wanting to face cancellation from this new generation, the old man kept quiet, though clearly frustrated. He then sprinted out of the facility like Usain Bolt. In a sense, we could say our MC relieved his back pain by threatening him. Jin, who tended to be a bit of an airhead, was surprised to see the old man run at full speed despite complaining about his back. We couldn't blame him for feeling worried about this naive nurse. Seeing that the situation wasn't progressing, Han Feng showed her the video, revealing that the pervert had filmed under her skirt. In response, Jin casually replied that she hadn't noticed. Our MC handed her the phone, telling her she could do whatever she wanted with it, but suggested calling the cops. Jin thanked him sincerely and smiled as if nothing had happened. Then, she brought up his ankle, asking about his injury, remembering he had a broken leg. All the pain that had been masked by his determination to protect the head nurse suddenly flooded in like a burst pipe, causing him to shout in agony. In the next scene, we see the head nurse carefully attending to his injury. She had just finished mending it with gauze. Jin not only healed his injury but also his heart with her pleasing smile. Han Feng thanked the nurse for her assistance, but she insisted that she should be the one expressing gratitude. In response, our MC scolded her to be more aware of her surroundings next time. Despite his warning, the naive nurse went ahead and pulled our boy's foot towards her chest as she conversed with him. One of her subordinates then called for her attention, prompting her to bid farewell to him. Before leaving, she reminded Han Feng to come back in a week for a follow-up checkup. Our MC acknowledged this with a smile on his face and waved goodbye. Han Feng stared at her until she disappeared into the crowd, knowing that getting the follow-up checkup wouldn't be possible because of the apocalypse. He lamented the fact that this might be the last time they would see each other. As such, our MC left the hospital on crutches. The next day, the blizzard became even more severe. Buildings in the city were now covered with a thick layer of snow, and people struggled to walk the streets. All news channels were discussing the current crisis. Within the next 24 hours, all regions of the country were expected to experience heavy snow and sharp drops in temperatures. Reports from overseas correspondents indicated that temperatures were plummeting worldwide. Experts and specialists from different countries were now discussing this unexpected weather anomaly. According to their assessment, the cold snap wouldn't last long, and the weather would return to normal soon. However, they warned people to pay attention to disaster warnings and follow the arrangements of local governments. Meanwhile, we see Han Feng casually watching this terrible news while sipping a glass of wine, seemingly unconcerned about this global calamity. He scoffs at the news, dismissing the government's statements as futile attempts to prevent panic with all the misinformation they're spreading. If he hadn't died and come back to the past, he might have believed their words, but not this time. He has fully prepared himself to battle this apocalypse. His house is stocked with supplies and reinforced with a heating system. While savoring the pleasant aroma of his drink, he smiles, reassured that he has everything he needs and there's no immediate worry about survival. Then his phone starts buzzing with messages from his apartment complex, all about the current crisis, just as he expected. People are beginning to panic. One particular message catches Han Feng's attention. It states that the Ice Age apocalypse is about to begin. He flinches. This news surprises him greatly. How could anyone other than him know about the Ice Age apocalypse? Growing wary of this mysterious person, Han Feng becomes serious, feeling it's crucial to be cautious around this unknown figure. Inside the group chat, people are arguing about gathering supplies. Uncertain when the weather will return to normal, they debate over who will go to the supermarket. The residents are demanding the property manager appear and explain their situation. The agents apologize to the angry crowd, explaining their helplessness due to the severe weather. However, the people are not accepting apologies. They are hungry and desperate for food to survive. So, if the property managers won't be of much help, they demand a refund on the fees they're paying them. Among the crowd, Han Feng scoffs at everyone present. He understands that this crisis is beyond human control, making their infighting meaningless. A resident steps forward to calm everyone down, noting the severity of the snowstorm. Even if the property managers attempt to clear the snow, it will quickly accumulate again. He suggests pooling efforts to clear the snow together so they can access food outside. Predictably, some oppose this idea, arguing they pay the property managers precisely for situations like this, and shouldn't have to pitch in. The man stands firm in his suggestion. He states that it's impossible for cars to travel in these conditions, so he will ask the property managers to clear the footpath, allowing everyone to walk to the supermarket. Our MC simply watches Jiang, the man who's leading the discussion. Han Feng vaguely remembers him. In his past life, Jiang was quite lively, and as seen today, adept at rallying people together under his leadership. Then, one user interrupted the debate, dismissing all the discussion as nonsense. He remarked that anyone who wanted to go outside should just do so without troubling others. With that said, he logged out of the discussion room, showing his disinterest. Following his departure, an overly dressed character stepped forward, declaring his intention to clear the path because he had important business with his brothers outside, involving millions. Our MC immediately recognized the speaker as Brother Lai. His arrogant and con artist nature was unmistakable even online. With Brother Lai volunteering, many others followed suit, and the discussion was quickly concluded. Several users with cute avatars then raised their hands, expressing their willingness to help despite physical limitations. Soon after, another character, using a charming demeanor to garner sympathy and favor, joined in. Our MC immediately identified her as Hyuna, known for her cunning nature. Upon hearing that Hyuna would participate, her admirers quickly pledged their cooperation as well. Irritated by her, he leaves the chat. He can't help but admit that Hyuna is really adept at capturing people's hearts. Even he was a victim of her charms. Lee Hyuna then messages our boy directly, asking what he has been up to lately. She mentions that our MC told her he would contact her, so she's been waiting. The cunning fox then asks him for a favor to go get her some supplies, and proceeds to send him a seductive selfie, despite the cold. Even though he's no longer infatuated with the deceitful witch, our MC is still contemplating how to reply to her. It took him too long to reply, which annoyed Hyuna as she waited. She throws her phone on the bed and stomps on it, venting her frustration towards Han Feng. Today is the third day since it started snowing. The temperature is now -20 degrees Celsius. In the early stages of the apocalypse, they still had the central heating system running, so it wasn't too difficult. Even the internet is still up and running, so everyone is living their lives as usual. As for our MC, he was only scrolling through erotic videos to pass the time. Han Feng scoffs. It's only the second day since he's been cooped up in his apartment, and he's already bored to death. It became clear to him that the biggest threat during the apocalypse is the loneliness that accompanies it. His leg is still busted as well. Well, a broken bone needs at least a few months to completely recover, so it's no surprise. With nothing better to do, he decided to continue scrolling through random videos where he came across some news about self-recovery. After doctors had sewn up the wounds of a man who had jumped from the 15th floor, they discovered that his damaged internal organs and bones had started to regenerate. This miraculous news gave Han Feng an idea. He remembered that he had an ability that promotes growth. Activating his green flame, he placed his hand on his broken leg, wondering if there would be some kind of effect. Pouring everything he had into this experiment, he stood still and waited. However, the green flame dissipated after a moment without producing any results. Han Feng lay down on the couch, feeling a bit disappointed. He had thought that the green light would help him recover from his injury faster. Drowsiness hit, and he fell asleep after a single yawn. As his consciousness faded, the next thing he saw was himself wearing tribal headgear while riding a mountain goat. It seemed he was traveling with a herd of goats somewhere. In this eerie ceremony, Han Feng rides at the forefront of a goat herd across a bloody red grassland. Totem poles are scattered around, and he enjoys whipping his whip all over the place. However, his enjoyment lasts only a minute before he's thrown off the goat's back into the herd, landing badly on the blood-red grass. His foot twists awkwardly with an audible crack, sending shivers of pain through him. Transitioning from the freedom of riding goats to immobility on the ground is jarring enough, worsened when a goat starts licking his broken leg. Disgusted, Han Feng tries desperately to shoo the goat away from his unfortunate injury, pushing it repeatedly until it finally retreats. The goat extends its tongue like a frog, wrapping it slimily around his leg before raising its head, dragging Han Feng along helplessly. Feeling slimy saliva running down his leg and warmth from green light wrapping around his injury, Han Feng wakes up from the bizarre nightmare involving countless goats, sweating and screaming. The dream was all too real. As he struggles to catch his breath, he wonders what caused such a chaotic dream. The answer is loud and clear. His broken right leg still emits a faint green light aura. Moreover, Han Feng feels a lightness in his limbs. He eagerly removes the bandage and steps cautiously on the floor, putting weight on his right leg. To his surprise and delight, There is no pain. Somehow, he's completely healed. Could it be that the green light aids in self-recovery? Does healing only occur during sleep? There's only one way to find out. Test it on another body part. With trembling hands, Han Feng takes his sharpest kitchen knife and slowly presses it against his other hand, mustering his resolve. He can't bear to watch as the blade pierces his flesh, drawing blood from a small cut. Without wasting a moment, Han Feng calls upon the green light to work its magic. As he witnesses the healing process firsthand, a smile spreads across his face. Now he understands. He has a real game-changer for survival in his hands. Outside the building, volunteers who diligently work together to clear the footpath are benefiting the community. Glasses Guy thanks everyone for participating in this challenging manual labor. Mr. Perfect even singles out the oldest among them, Uncle Liu, and politely apologizes for any inconvenience caused. Zhang Shuiyu truly knows how to handle any situation. Uncle Liu Guangyao just laughs and insists he didn't do much, giving credit to the Jin brothers for their hard work, especially Jin Qinwen and Jin Qinwu. While they put finishing touches, a young lady in a thick pink coat slips on the ice. The Jin brothers immediately rush to her aid, reminding her to be cautious. This young lady, Jin Jian, is a real doer, unlike Li Huna, who didn't leave her room after feigning sickness. With much still to do, the Jin brothers tell Jin Jian to call if she needs help. She assures them she'll manage. The snow is getting heavier, urging those planning to buy supplies to act swiftly. Speaking of supplies, Uncle Liu recalls something from weeks ago. He stops himself, thinking it might not be significant, but Zhang Shuyu encourages him to share. Uncle Liu mentions noticing a neighbor bringing supplies on a small truck, almost like moving houses. Zhang Shuyu thinks it's common with people moving in or renovating, but Uncle Liu sensed something more. He saw gas tanks and even a fireplace being delivered, unusual for a typical move-in. It's just a hunch, but Uncle Liu suspects they're preparing for a harsh winter. The conversation is interrupted by the Jin brothers finishing the main path clearing, allowing people to venture out. Uncle Liu promptly thanked them wholeheartedly. However, unbeknownst to everyone, there was another tenant listening in from earlier. He overheard talks about building a new house, but wasn't sure if it would happen. He hadn't prepared for winter, and his morbid interest had been piqued. This weirdo was quickly neutralized by a snowball landing on the back of his head. Wu Kuan-yu was taken down a peg by Liu Yan, a gorgeous woman. The weirdo tried to argue that he had been doing everything alone, with her merely watching from the sidelines. However, Liu Yan dismissed him as an unruly child. Zhang Shuyu broke up the fight between them and announced that the main path had been cleared and was now passable. This meant the volunteers could stop shoveling and prepare to head out to the supermarket for supplies. Looking at their shopping list, it seemed the Jin brothers had a lot to buy, including items for their mom, showing they were good sons. Despite initially not wanting to share the story, Uncle Liu seemed overly curious about Zhang Shuiyu's thoughts on the tenant who had brought in a ton of supplies. Truthfully, Zhang Shuiyu wasn't too concerned about rumors. He still trusted what the government and authorities were saying, that this was just a brief snowstorm that would soon pass, requiring endurance just for a bit longer. So he wasn't too worried about those mysterious deliveries. But even if they considered the snowstorm might last, if someone in the neighborhood was hoarding resources, wouldn't that benefit everyone? Uncle Liu immediately understood what Zhang Shuyu was implying and praised him for being astute. Under the relentless snowfall, with no signs of abating, Zhang Shuyu led some of the tenants to the supermarket, ensuring everyone queued up properly. With the snow becoming heavier, they needed to try and return within 3 hours. Zhang Shuiyu also expressed concern about the snowstorm's severity, questioning whether they'd even have a road to walk back on if they passed the 3-hour mark. While those brave souls ventured into the unknown and endured the harsh conditions, Han Feng lay passed out in his warm and cozy living room, drooling on himself. He would have stayed holed up on his couch indefinitely, stocked with soda and junk food to tide him over the dull day, if not for the annoying voice calling him to the door. Han Feng lazily opened his door. He wipes the sleep from his eyes and sees homeless Joe. "Sorry, Brother Li." "Well?" The smooth-talking gangster has come through once again. Han Feng is now in a state of shock. a feeling that has persisted for quite some time. Inside a large bag lies a semi-automatic rifle with a proper crosshair, exactly what Han Feng desired. This was the promised gift from Boss Liu. Brother Li agreed to deliver it after preparing in advance, allowing him to avoid the frantic city-wide search for supplies that most citizens are enduring. Han Feng was grateful to Brother Li for coming in this weather. Additionally, Brother Li shared intriguing information. Rumors were spreading about a recent incident where an unknown person had cleaned out a supermarket in the Eastern District overnight. When Boss Liu's gang cleared the snow yesterday, they found the shelves completely empty. Han Feng found this unbelievable. How could someone clean out such a large supermarket in one night? Yet, he trusted Brother Li's account. It seemed something even more unusual than in his previous life was unfolding around him. Perhaps others had gained superpowers as well. Before he could ponder further, Brother Li interrupted, advising Han Feng to wear warmer clothes and be cautious before bidding farewell. Alone again, Han Feng mulled over the strange events. He attempted to find a logical explanation for the supermarket incident, considering theories from novels and comics about individuals with superpowers who could store vast amounts of supplies in personal spaces. Could such abilities exist in reality? Given his own powers, it seemed possible. This realization unsettled him. Han Feng knew he couldn't delay. He needed to understand his powers thoroughly to develop strategies against others with superpowers. Consulting his diary, he reviewed what he knew. His powers reacted differently to various foods, with varying success rates. For instance, soybeans had a 10% success rate for growing plants, while meat had even less. Han Feng was frustrated by these limitations, struggling to grasp why his powers behaved this way. Suddenly, under the influence of the force, the soybean exploded in Han Feng's hand, releasing an unpleasant green cloud. Instead of a normal plant, our hero found himself holding a rock, just a stinky rock. This growing failure rate was beginning to frustrate him. Han Feng realized he needed to learn to use his power more effectively, and was determined to practice hard. After all, practice is the key to mastering any skill quickly. He spared no time, working diligently until late in the evening. Finally, his efforts paid off. Han Feng successfully produced a fresh, lively soybean plant with pods. However, achieving this milestone was no easy feat. He was sweating profusely and had inadvertently turned his apartment into a sauna. But understanding a few key rules to increase success was worth it. Han Feng discovered that the duration of applying the green light energy varied depending on the nutritional value of the product. Incorrect timing resulted in failure and a burnt, stinky stone. He realized that knowing the ideal cooking interval for each product was crucial. This reminded Han Feng of something familiar, a popular music and dance online game from a decade ago, where players had to press the right buttons in rhythm at the beginning of the game. The game was known as the Han Feng game. In this game, players had to press the correct buttons at precise intervals. It was also conceivable that energy values could be likened to directions: up, down, right, and left. The energy input had to be accurate every second, and eventually, a critical point had to be reached, and the process halted. Success was achieved by performing these steps correctly, resulting in every soybean becoming a plant. Following this success with plants, Han Feng began experimenting with meat. However, meat posed different challenges compared to vegetables. Any misstep in the process would cause the meat to revert to a plant form. Nevertheless, the principles for transforming meat were expected to be similar. The first step was determining the precise energy requirements for the meat. Initially, everything seemed to proceed according to plan. However, a problem soon emerged. Just like before, the chicken leg exploded into a nasty black slurry. It appeared that mastering the handling of meat would prove more challenging and time-consuming than with plant-based foods. Time after time, Han Feng attempted and failed. Chicken legs continued to explode one after another, with no end to this series of failures in sight. Despite his patience wearing thin in moments of despair, Han Feng refused to give up. Even as snow fell heavily outside and temperatures dropped, he persisted in his efforts. The kitchen bore witness to his determination, marked by traces of his ongoing struggle. Then, finally, came the moment of truth. The last chicken leg. Our MC operated on autopilot, his face expressionless, with little hope for success. He maneuvered up and down, left and right, managing energies of red and green. To him, it resembled an overly intricate minigame, each move repeated meticulously. Any misstep meant restarting from scratch, heightening the tension to its peak. This time, Han Feng succeeded. He enlarged the chicken leg to a colossal size. With a snort of disdain, it was worth the effort, and collapsed, exhausted yet content, onto the floor. Finally, he had discovered a method to synthesize meat. Outside, the weather worsened daily. News reports declared July 17th marked the third consecutive day of snow across the country, a disaster seemingly occurring once in millennia. Authorities were actively combating the aftermath to safeguard citizens' basic needs. This was the news that greeted Han Feng the next day. He had heard such empty warnings and assurances before in his previous life, how heavy snowfall paralyzed transport, electricity, and the internet. Yet, everything would supposedly be fixed soon. They just needed to wait a bit longer. Humanitarian aid was promised for the disaster zones. The news anchor advised everyone to stay indoors unnecessarily, which was no surprise to Han Feng. Suddenly, notifications flooded his phone, all from fellow residents in his building causing a ruckus. Han Feng couldn't resist joining in. The clamor was deafening, everyone debating the morning's news. Some trusted rescuers would arrive, others prepared to fend for themselves, dismissing promises as empty. One voice stood out, an avatar questioning the naivety of those who believed the news. It was old Uncle Liu, adamant that TV reports couldn't be trusted. If the government truly had control, rescue teams would have come long ago. Instead, he heard rumors from old friends that the government was amassing an arsenal in City A, the capital, preparing for an imminent war.